You know that sinking feeling? The moment the relationship ends, the job disappears, the person you can't imagine life without is suddenly gone. And you ask yourself, how do I move forward now? See, most of us have a boat, something we believe we absolutely must have to reach our destination, a specific person, a certain opportunity, a safety net. And when that boat breaks apart, we panic. We think our destination is gone too. But what if I told you you can still make it to the shore, even without the boat? In Acts chapter 27, the Apostle Paul was on a ship headed to Rome. He was a prisoner, and somewhere in the journey, a violent storm rolled in. 14 days of being battered by waves, 14 days of throwing cargo overboard just to survive. No sun, no stars, no sense of direction. Then the ship hit a sandbar and started breaking apart. 276 people on board, panic everywhere. But Paul stood up in the middle of the storm and said something extraordinary. Not one of you will lose your life. Only the ship will be destroyed. And here's what happened. Every single person grabbed what they could, broken pieces of the ship, and made it to shore. Some swam, some floated on planks of wood, but all 276 people made it without the boat. The thing that was supposed to carry them, destroyed, but their destination didn't change. Their arrival wasn't canceled. And I want to speak to somebody watching this right now. You're looking at the wreckage of what used to be your life, your plan, your relationship, your security. Listen, God doesn't need your boat to complete His plan for your life. He never did. Your purpose is still intact, even if the vehicle you thought would carry you there is gone. Here's something powerful about that story. When they needed to get to shore, they didn't wait for a rescue ship. They grabbed the broken pieces, the scraps, the fragments, and used them to swim to safety. Broken pieces became their breakthrough. What are your broken pieces right now? Maybe it's one skill you have left after a layoff, the small amount of money still in your account, one prayer you can still whisper. God has a plan for your remnants. Remember the story of the boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish? Jesus had 5,000 people to feed and no catering budget. 5 loaves and 2 fish don't feed 5,000 people. That's math. But Jesus took what little was there, blessed it, and multiplied it into more than enough. There were even leftovers. The mistake we make after loss is we keep staring at what isn't there anymore. We inventory our losses. We compare who we are now to who we were before the storm. What if you shifted the question today? Not what did I lose, but what do I have left? Because whatever you have left, however small it seems, however broken it feels, God can work with it. He specializes in remnants. He's the God of the leftover, the last drop, the seed that looks dead before it grows. Your brokenness is not your ending. It might be the beginning of your biggest breakthrough. Let me tell you about someone whose story doesn't get talked about enough. His name was Mephibosheth. He was the grandson of King Saul, the son of Jonathan. He was royalty, supposed to grow up in a palace. But when he was just 5 years old, disaster struck. His father and grandfather both died in battle. The palace fell into chaos. The servant who was supposed to protect him picked him up to flee, and in the panic, she dropped him. Both of his feet were injured so severely that he never walked normally again. He didn't choose that. He didn't cause that. Somebody else's panic, somebody else's failure, and he ended up broken, living in a place called Lodibar. Lodibar literally means no pasture, a wasteland. Maybe you're in your own Lodibar, and you know you didn't deserve this. You didn't ask to be abandoned. You didn't deserve the betrayal. Somebody else made selfish choices, and you're living with the consequences. But here's what happens next. Years later, King David is sitting on his throne and he asks, "Is there anyone left from the house of Jonathan? Because I want to show them kindness." They find Mephibosheth in Lodibar, forgotten, crippled, probably convinced his royal bloodline was a cruel joke. And David calls him into the palace, restores all the land that belonged to his grandfather, seats him at the king's table every single day. Somebody dropped you. Somebody left you in Lodibar. But people can drop you. They cannot permanently rewrite your destiny. Circumstances can relocate you. They cannot lock you out of your purpose. Because God is your doorkeeper, and what he opens, no one can shut. The king is still looking for you. Let me give you one more shift in perspective. What if the trouble you're going through right now is actually transportation? Not a dead end, not punishment. Transportation. Think about Joseph. He had a colorful coat, a gift from his father, a symbol of favor and love. His brothers were jealous. They attacked him, stripped the coat off, threw him in a pit, and eventually sold him into slavery. They took his resource, the visible symbol of his blessing. But here's what they couldn't take. They couldn't take the dream God placed inside him. They couldn't take his work ethic in Potiphar's house. They couldn't take his integrity when he was falsely accused. They couldn't take the wisdom that would one day bring him before Pharaoh. They took his resource. They couldn't touch his source. And every single painful mile of that journey, the pit, the slavery, the false accusation, the prison, was actually the road that led him straight to the palace, to his purpose, to a position where he would eventually save the very brothers who betrayed him. The trouble was the transportation. I think sometimes God allows the boat to break because he wants us to learn something critical. He wants us to learn the difference between a resource and a source. A resource is the vehicle, a person, a job, a situation. A resource is good, but it was never meant to be the foundation. The source is God himself. The source never breaks, never leaves, never gets downgraded. When you have nothing left to lean on but God, that might be the most spiritually transformative moment of your life. So let me wrap this up. You may have lost the boat. You may have lost the job, the opportunity, the financial security. You may have lost someone you loved deeply. And I'm not going to tell you it doesn't hurt. Grief is real. Loss is heavy. But I need you to hear this. You may have lost the boat, but you did not lose your destiny. The storm was not the final word. Lodibar was not the final word. The pit was not the final word. God's word for your life is still standing. And just like those 276 people washed up on that shore, alive, present, accounted for, you are going to make it to yours. Not because you had the right resources, but because the God who said, "I will never leave you," is still in this with you. So here's what I want you to do. In the comments below, name one broken piece that you're thankful for today, one thing still in your hands, one person in your corner, one promise you're holding on to. Because that broken piece, that's your transportation. And if this video gave you something today, share it with somebody who's in the middle of their storm. They need this more than they'll say. Before I go, your boat may be gone, but your morning is coming. You're still going to get there. Take care. Keep the faith. I'll see you in the next one.